He was one of the most gifted players to wear an English shirt, but the system didn't know how to handle him. Len Shackleton didn't fit the mold. He wasn't obedient, he wasn't predictable, and he didn't pretend to be anything but himself. He nutmegged defenders with a smile, mocked managers with a pass, turned matches into theatre, and still walked away with the points. The fans adored him, but English football didn't. He received just 5 caps for his country, never played in a World Cup, never got a proper farewell, no statue, no grand tribute, just silence. He gave the game joy, and the game erased him for it. This isn't just the story of a forgotten footballer, it's the story of how brilliance becomes inconvenient, and how a smile can threaten the system. Subscribe if you believe football should remember its artists, not just the ones who followed instructions. Because Len Shackleton didn't just play the game, he exposed it and laughed as he passed it by. May 3rd, 1922, Bradford, West Yorkshire. Len Shackleton was born into a working-class family in a country still healing from the Great War, with another conflict looming just over the horizon. There were no academies, no scouts waiting with contracts, just cold streets, stitched balls, and kids who learned by playing, not performing. From an early age, Len stood out. Not because he was stronger, not because he was faster, but because he was clever. He'd dummy when no one expected it, play passes no one else saw, make people smile without saying a word. While other boys wanted to win, Len wanted to entertain. He played wherever and whenever he could, on cobblestones, in alleyways, on muddy pitches worn down by rain and rationing. By the time the Second World War broke out, he was already building his game in non-league football, quietly crafting a style that didn't follow anyone's rulebook. He joined Bradford Park Avenue as a teenager. It wasn't glamorous. There was no spotlight, but it was enough to get in front of a crowd, enough to let the ball speak for him. It didn't take long for people to realize this boy didn't play like the others. In 1946, as the war ended and football began to rebuild, Len Shackleton signed for Newcastle United. It wasn't just another move, it was a stage, and Len was ready for it. His debut made that clear. Against Newport County, he scored 6 goals in a single match, a club record that still stands today. It wasn't luck, it wasn't a fluke, it was a message. This was a different kind of footballer. But it wasn't just the goals that stunned people, it was how he did it. He beat defenders not with force, but with imagination. Flicks, feints, movement that made seasoned professionals look unsure of where the ball had gone. To the fans, he was electric, a magician in black and white, something English football rarely saw and barely understood. But behind the curtain, there was friction. He questioned decisions. He wouldn't be told how to play. And he had little patience for authority that didn't earn his respect. The directors began to worry. Not about his ability, that was unquestionable, but about his attitude, his independence. Newcastle had found a star, but they also found a challenge. And the system? It doesn't like challenges. In 1948, Len Shackleton made a record-breaking move to Sunderland. £20,050, the highest fee ever paid between British clubs at the time. The price raised eyebrows, but Sunderland weren't buying a name, they were buying magic. And over the next decade, Shackleton gave them exactly that. He played over 320 games, scored 101 goals, wore the armband, and gave the fans something even more rare, a reason to enjoy football again. They called him the Clown Prince of Football. But there was nothing foolish about the way he played. His touches were deliberate, his movement intelligent. His tricks weren't for show, they were weapons, flicks over defenders, dummies that sent opponents the wrong way. No-look passes. He once chipped a penalty over the bar, just to make a point. He toyed with defenders like a violinist toys with silence, and the fans adored him for it. But behind the laughter, the tension was building. Managers grew uneasy, club directors even more so. They couldn't control him. And they didn't like that. Because Len Shackleton wasn't just unorthodox, he was fearless. He played with freedom in a game that worshipped control. And every time he smiled after embarrassing a fullback, the men upstairs felt a little more exposed. But Len didn't care. He wasn't there to please the boardroom. He was there for the people in the stands, and they never stopped singing for him. He played over a decade of first-class football, electrified stadiums, broke records, led from the front. But when it came to representing his country, England barely called his name. Just 5 caps, all between 1948 and 1954. No tournaments, no World Cup, no run in the team, and it wasn't a question of talent. England knew who he was. They saw what he did week after week in front of tens of thousands. But Shackleton wasn't what they wanted. The national setup demanded discipline, predictability, players who followed instructions, not ones who questioned them. Len didn't fit. He played with freedom. He thought independently. He refused to be reduced to a system part. To selectors, that was dangerous. They labeled him difficult, unmanageable, a luxury. But fans knew the truth. Shackleton wasn't unreliable. He was uncontainable. And that, in England's conservative football culture, was enough to shut the door. He never complained, never launched a media campaign, never asked for what wasn't given. But those who watched him knew what had been lost. Because when a player like Len Shackleton is given 5 caps, it says less about the player and more about the system. By the mid-1950s, Len Shackleton had given everything he could on the pitch. But when it came time to walk away, he did it the same way he played, on his own terms. He retired in 1957, aged 35. No testimonial, no farewell tour, just a quiet exit from a game that never truly knew how to handle him. But he wasn't done speaking, not with his feet, with a pen. Soon after retirement, he published his autobiography. A sharp, witty, honest account of life inside English football. And in that book was a single chapter that said more than most players dare speak in a lifetime. It was titled, "What the Average Director Knows About Football." The page beneath it? Completely blank. No explanation, no complaint. Just silence. And a truth louder than any rant. In that single moment, he exposed the disconnect between players and the men who controlled their careers. And the book didn't stop there. Shackleton called out the maximum wage that capped player salaries. He questioned the blind authority of club boards. He exposed the system that treated footballers like replaceable parts, not people. This wasn't bitterness. It was honesty. He wasn't angry. He was tired. Tired of seeing talent suffocated by control and joy reduced to obedience. And true to form, he didn't scream. He smiled and let the silence do the work. Football didn't respond. The directors didn't flinch. The structure didn't change overnight. But the fans remembered. That blank page became a symbol of rebellion, of dignity, of truth. Because Len Shackleton didn't just fight back, he wrote back. After retiring in 1957, Len Shackleton slipped quietly out of the spotlight. There was no testimonial match, no documentary, no invitation back to the stage he once owned. He took a job as a columnist for the Daily Express, wrote with the same honesty he played with, clear-eyed, sharp, unwilling to flatter those in charge. But even as he kept his voice alive, his name began to fade from the headlines. The game changed. The crowds got louder, the cameras got closer. But Len, the man who once made stadiums laugh out loud, was left behind. He lived out his years in the Northeast, quietly. No coaching offers from the top clubs. No place in the FA's inner circle. Just a man who had given the game joy and had been filed away like a forgotten file. When he passed away in 2000, at the age of 78, the reaction was brief. A few newspaper columns. Some warm words from those who'd seen him play. But from the institutions of English football, silence. No tribute from the FA. No national moment of reflection. no statue outside any ground. For a man who gave fans something no coach could teach, football moved on without leaving a marker behind. But silence has its own meaning. And for those who remembered, those who still smile when they say his name, that silence said more than any speech ever could. Football has always celebrated the strong, the disciplined, the obedient, the soldier, the grinder, the quiet workhorse. But Len Shackleton wasn't built for that. He was something else, an artist in a game run by uniforms. He didn't win the most. He didn't fit the mold. He didn't follow the lines drawn for him. He sketched new ones with his boots. And that's why the system never truly embraced him. You can reward loyalty, you can promote order, but creativity, that you can't control. And that made Len dangerous. While others were knighted, remembered, sculpted in stone, Len Shackleton's legacy lived in memory, not marble. There are no highlights packages from his era, no murals in the tunnel, no shirts hanging in the rafters. But there is something deeper. His spirit lives in the players who dare to smile when they play, in every street kid who chips a ball just to see if they can, in every fan who still believes football is supposed to be fun. Len didn't chase the game. He played it on his terms. And in doing so, he reminded us what the sport could be: joyful, daring, free. He was never given the tribute he deserved. But maybe the truest tribute is this: the game couldn't contain him, but it never quite let him go either. He didn't play for medals. He didn't chase records. He didn't ask for praise. Len Shackleton played to make people feel something: a flick, a laugh, a moment of genius no one saw coming, and no one forgot. He never fit the system, and maybe that's why the system quietly let him fade. No testimonial, no statue, no national farewell. But for those who still remember, for those who saw the way he made football feel, he never really left. He still lives in the passes that dare to be different, in the goals that don't follow the script, in the players who play with mischief, not just muscle, and in every empty stadium seat, in every match where joy returns. Len Shackleton is there. No tribute was written, so we wrote one. If stories like this matter to you, the ones the headlines forgot, the ones the system ignored, subscribe. Because we don't just tell football stories, we remember football souls. Len Shackleton, the genius who mocked the game and made it better because of it.